Welcome to the Yeoman Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Graham. I'm excited to have with me today the two partners of Orthodox Masonry based in Springfield, Vermont. This is Patrick Mellon on your right. I think it will show up that way, and Seth Harris on the left. Thanks, gentlemen, for joining me. Delighted to have you here.
Good to have you.
Absolutely.
I would encourage y'all to go check out their work. You can find them pretty easily if you Google Orthodox Masonry, whether it's on Instagram or their website or on X. And I'll beautiful structural masonry, beautiful timber framework, and I'm really taken with it, and have gotten to know Patrick a little bit, and Seth a little bit less. But just wanted to chat with these guys about how they got into doing what they're doing, and we'll start from there. So can I ask you all to introduce yourselves and Orthodox Masonry?
Sure. Let me go first. Yeah. I'm Patrick Lemon, and I founded Orthodox Masonry, I guess that would have been 2017, I think. And my background in the construction world was I apprenticed under a master builder by the name of Clay Chapman for right around 3 years. Did work in the Southeast, and then a couple of years in Oklahoma with him at a new urbanist development called Carlton Landing. And then, the game plan was always to strike out on my own, so I did. And then sort of in the midst of sort of that journeyman's stage of construction, I would go around sort of from project to project in the Southeast on my own, working on them. I got pulled up to help some nuns start a monastery, a traditionally built monastery in Fairfield, Pennsylvania. And that's where I met Seth. That would have been 2018.
Yeah.
And we hit it off there. And it's kind of funny. We actually, it's sort of indicative of our dynamic and relationship is the tools, the physical tools that we had. We just started noticing that we basically had all of the same tools with a few key exceptions, or like, oh, Seth has this tool, I don't have that tool. And then I have something that he doesn't have. But like the core set, we had the same tools down to like weird idiosyncrasies.
Yeah. So that the fundamental overarching way of thinking about things was affecting all of these small individual decisions, and they ended up producing, this set of tools that were weirdly,
eerily similar. Like I'm for a lot of core stuff, I've gone down the DeWalt tech tree, but that's still one of my favorite just cheap saws is the Makita 7/4. But then like for the router, I went Bosch, and Seth had Bosch. Same axe, that.
Your Gansfors.
Yeah, we had the same. It was just the right size. It was just a little freaky, but
his stiletto hammer has the waffle, and mine doesn't. So it's not exactly the same.
Yeah,
you still have something to argue about.
Right.
Yeah.
So you found each other at the Carmelite Monastery. That's
yes.
We'll link to that.
Catholicism brought us together.
It's a beautiful project. And Seth, can you share a little of your backstory about how you found your way to that monastery?
Yeah. So, I grew up here in Springfield, Vermont, and I homeschooled. My dad had a cabinet shop in the basement. I lived next door, just down the street from where we're at here. My grandfather was building the house that we're in right now, which has the woodworking shop attached to it, and a bunch of other, garage facilities and good infrastructure for running business out of. And so, I came up learning all of that stuff, and then struck out on my own when I was 19, I guess. I started my own business, but I was working with my grandfather for the first 7 years, kind of finishing up all the projects that he and my dad had started. Kind of a great family setup where I was able to live with my parents. My grandfather lived on Social Security. My dad was working. Between the three of us, we were able to wrap a lot of stuff up and then create function.
Mm-hmm.
And then after my grandfather passed away, my wife and I both got really ill with Lyme disease.
Yeah.
And we had to do this thing of you borrow some money, you go get treatment, you feel better, you work as hard as you can, you get ill again, you borrow some money, you get more treatment. It was just this cycle. And so basically I spent 15 years as a mercenary. So you're trying to find the hardest thing that you can do that'll make the most amount of money in the shortest amount of time, and you go and you do it. And then go do the next thing. So I was working by myself, but then I would subcontract to each of my friends. I had a group of maybe 4 friends that would be taking on different projects, and they would say, hey, I've got this project that I want to do, but I'm not going to do it unless you come and help me do it. And so I got really trained into doing things that I didn't
Problem solving.
Yeah, things that I don't know how to do is kind of my best skill. So I would just get pulled into things like that. So wide range of cabinetry, carpentry, excavation. Did solar installation during the economic downturn that 2009-ish.
Yeah, there was a huge boom, given that there are all kinds of tax credits and things for that.
Right. And it was right when there was there were so many guys in the construction that were doing stuff at essentially at a loss just to be able to generate cash flow, so they didn't lose their machinery that they owed on. And I just stepped right out of woodworking for a while and did excavation instead, and then transitioned into doing stonework. And because I had the machinery and was helping out do stonework, and started getting certified doing dry stone walling through the Dry Stone Walling Association of Great Britain. And that was just a great move for me. And I was doing that through the Stone Trust here in Vermont, which is another great organization that promotes historic dry stone walling and proper building techniques. And they're using the DSWA, the Dry Stone Walling Association of Great Britain's certification process. And
highly recommend folks check out the Stone Trust. It's even if you're not interested in historical stonework, you get great fundamentals. If you want to understand how to build properly with stone, that's a great sort of in the door.
So that kind of brings us to 2018. The nuns are trying to build a stone monastery. They were living in a concrete monastery that was built in the 1970s or 50s or 70s. And it had mold problems, and it was affecting their health. The building had not just zero value, it had negative value. Mm. The land would be worth more if it didn't exist.
Yeah.
And, wait a second. There's all these monasteries in Europe that are 800 years old, and they have a net value instead of a negative value. Let's do that. So they get this land in Fairfield, and they wanted to do that. And all the contractors, they were talking to them, oh, no, you can't do that. It'll fall down. So they started, through contacts of theirs, doing internet research. They weren't doing the internet research themselves, and trying to find experts. And they came up with, the Stone Trust as a, American-based organization that actually could do fundamental structural buildings. They found Patrick in a similar way.
They found the Dry Stone Conservancy, which is another dry stone walling group, and other sort of folks, and sort of brought everyone together sort of in a petri dish.
Yeah.
And each
Stu,
one had
Seth, you were in Springfield at the time.
Yeah. Right.
And Stu, were you in South Carolina or were you still in Oklahoma with Clay?
I was, where was I? I was on my own. I'm trying to think. I was just back in South Carolina. I had done some work in Georgia, but then I was back in South Carolina and then soon up in Pennsylvania. Yeah. For about a year.
Yeah. So I got pulled in for, a 5-month project to lead in training of local Masons and getting them certified, and then lead quality assurance essentially on one build there. And so that's
how I got into stone. Like I got level 1 and level 2, sort of right there on site, real quick, sort of a trial by fire. Because my skill set was I had good experience on building traditional masonry structures holistically from start to finish. And no one else had that piece. They had other timber framers. They had people that actually knew stone, but no one really had experience on how do you start building this stuff at scale effectively and incorporating, everything from window bucks to, sill plates efficiently, even down to just material logistics and like where to source stuff from.
And I'd add in I think one of our single digit episodes, I think with Austin Bell, we talked a good bit about Clay Chapman, who's an outstanding, I guess you would say Clay has a huge amount of responsibility for helping a number of Masons sort of learn the craft and launch out on their own. Is that fair to say?
I mean, I'm biased, but yeah. I was his first like full on apprentice. Like he had other guys help him, like good friends help him over the years, but I was the first guy that came to him and said, I want to learn and I want to go out and do what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And Seth's dog, here's your dog.
I didn't know if that was going to make it on the mic. I didn't know how sensitive it must be.
Yeah. That's a good cameo.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but he sort of put in this, he sort of willed this spark of life, into it. Because, you'll come across people and they say, well, like, we actually know this or that. Like, it wasn't dead. What are you talking about? Like, no, it was like spiritually it was dead.
Yeah.
Even if you find a scrap of knowledge in some textbook, which even then there's a lot of problems with that. There was no relationship and community around it. And he just stubbornly forged open that door again for other folks.
I can't remember if I shared this about Clay. I should ask Clay to come on when I was chatting with Austin. But who did you overlap with Austin when you were working with Clay?
Yeah, so for a little over a year.
Yeah.
So my sort of last time, and that was actually, I think, something that is actually really important. What I attribute sort of to a big part of my education is that I got to help teach Austin, and the classic, like, by teaching you know more. So I was like very grateful that Austin came in when he did. Having that chain of continuance, was like really helpful in forming a lot of stuff for me, selfishly. So hopefully Austin got something out of it too. But
because that's one of the big skills of building is, you can't just build a house by yourself. I mean, you could, but
it'd be there a decade.
Yeah. And so, you have this constant flow of, you're going to have, people that you're going to have to be training all the time, and being able to be good at that early on is really, really critical in being able to produce volume. And
there's a lot of builders that I don't know, I don't want to go off too much of a tangent, but like they'll bemoan and complain about no young person wants to work with me or like do this. And I'm like, you kind of got to look in the mirror, man. Like you get there's some skills that there's some muscles that you have let atrophy, in terms of relating to other people, teaching, you got to get good at it. Like, do you want this or not? And just because you can lay brick doesn't mean that you can help teach someone how to lay brick. Mm-hmm. You can get good at it. Maybe not the best, but you can definitely exercise that muscle. And a lot of guys don't see that, or don't value the teaching and instruction that they had. Maybe, I don't know. But I'm continually grateful for the teaching and mentoring that Clay poured into my life.
That's great. I met this super small world, like a weird small world thing. I met Clay a million years ago. I'd moved back to Atlanta from Charleston. Mm-hmm. I'm a partner in a real estate development company building a similar place as Carlton Landing, and knew Grant Humphreys, the developer there from way back. Right. And I was Googling for Rumford fireplace details, trying to find pictures of those things.
Yeah.
Working on a design for a building.
I know the article you're talking about.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But I found a picture on Flickr of it wasn't a Rumford fireplace, but it was a masonry, a total brick structural masonry building in Decatur, Georgia, which is right down the road from me. And I could kind of make out where it was and figure it out. And there was a cool fireplace in it, and it was under construction. It's like, I need to go by that job site. And so I just drove by the job site, and I met Clay, and he was like, "Why are you here? Who are you?" And I was like, I'd love meeting you, and let me know if you want to get together something. He was like, I'm actually about to move to Oklahoma, and and then I never talked to him or saw him again until I later put together that he had been working at Carlton Landing, a neighborhood I was really familiar with.
Yeah, that's funny.
And then got to watch all that.
Wait. First, I thought you were talking about a different house, but you were at the Oakhurst, the house in Oakhurst.
Oh, maybe it might have been Oakhurst and not Decatur, but I thought it was Decatur.
Well, I mean, I guess Oakhurst is just part of Decatur, but
real close. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's my.
There's some people that visited that project, but I was there.
Oh, were you really?
Yeah. Okay. If he's talking about Oklahoma, then I was there.
That's really great.
That's funny.
Well, we're meandering around, but I do want to talk about want to talk a little bit more about the monastery. So y'all got kind of recruited a disparate group of people who were interested in and had skills to bring to bear to do this project. And we'll share a lot of pictures of it because it's a long, I gather it's going to be a generational type project. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, they've probably got another 10, 15 years, I suspect. Yeah. So actually, like so many things in historical builds, it's like, it took 400 years to build this cathedral. No, it took 400 years to fund it. So like that's the big I think the Houses of Parliament, with Big Ben in London, I think that was a 30-year build, the whole thing. Someone can fact check me, but in and around 30 years. But it was fully funded. They didn't have a king die and his, son comes up and doesn't want to carry it on, or there's a war, whatever. But so I think for them, the funding is like the biggest question mark in terms of how fast they do everything.
Yeah, right.
But I'd say around there.
So you both met working on that project together.
Yeah.
Your home, Patrick, your home is in, I think, near Columbia or in Columbia?
Well, I grew up in the upstate in York County.
And where? Again?
Clover, York County.
Oh, yeah. Did we talk about this? My family's from Rock Hill. My dad's family.
Yeah. So I was just on the western end of it. But I went to university in Columbia, a small liberal arts liberal arts college there, and lived there for a number of years as well. So, and my sister.
So Seth, you were in Springfield.
Yep.
Did you work outside of Vermont, or was this your
This was kind of my first big. Well, I went to Alaska for a summer when I was in my early 20s. Got to see something, and it was one of those weird things where normally I would just be like, no, I can't do that. It's 9 hours away, and when the opportunity came up, I stopped and I thought, like, well, all of the reasons that would say that I can't go disappeared in the last 2 weeks. My wife had quit doing her part-time job, so she was in between stuff there. We had a small CSA that we were doing, and we just decided that we were going to drop doing that year. We've been doing a no-till mulch system for 7 years. It's been working great. Each year for the previous 3 years, there'd been a little bit more slugs, and it had just gotten to an infestation point. I'm like, okay, we have to change fields, so we're gonna drop the CSA this year, and it was one of those spots where we needed medical debt to go away. We'd gotten treatment, and we'd actually finally gotten over the Lyme disease. We haven't had any real issues with it since then.
Yeah.
But it's just like, all right, we got to make this home equity loan go away. So like, oh, something uncomfortable and difficult and hard. Well, let's go do it. So, and it was a great experience. I mean, it was pretty stressful. There were a lot of different players, and a lot of different directions that people were pulling. And
I imagine you put together a bunch of people who, I mean, for one, you have to be a pretty independent thinker, or it'd be likely that you would be an independent thinker to be pursuing this craft to begin with. Yeah. And then you take a whole bunch of people who don't really know each other, many who don't really know each other, and put them together on a team. That's got to be an interesting dynamic there.
It is.
That was the biggest thing, I think, that the one glaring drawback is I guess to paint the scene, like these are Carmelite nuns that are cloistered. Like they do not interact with the outside world really at all. And a lot of them will have been involved since they were 18 or 20. And so like the head prioress at the time, most of her life has been sort of in this world. And then, for this building project, you're going to go out into the world and try to run a construction project. Like that's just, it's hard. So I definitely feel for them, but the way that they structured it initially was there was no good, sort of line of responsibility and leadership for running the whole project. And it just added sort of unnecessary friction.
So it was highly educational, and it was great education, because now anytime we step into something, really looking for who has authority, and what is the flow of authority, power, responsibility? How does that all flow down? And
we're keenly aware.
or is it a cat chasing its tail? And
it's helpful because like we've turned down some potentially really lucrative projects, Jeff.
Because but costs too much.
Yeah, the leadership was like, the way that you're wanting to structure this whole endeavor is bad. Like,
yeah,
all right, thanks, but no thanks. But I had signed a year-long contract with them, and it worked out well in that, I did that. We got them to the next stage, but they were still not sure. I was recommending a certain trajectory. There were others that were recommending another one, and they didn't want to commit to one way or the other. And in talking with some of the other folks that were close to the nuns, they were helpful in sort of giving me context of like, hey, don't wait around. Like, if this is not a good system for you, which we can sort of see from the sidelines that it is, don't feel bad about moving on. So I did sort of force them to back a horse, and it's been going well. I would have done it different, but anyone would do stuff different,
right.
They were sort of at this, they didn't want to go down one road or the other. And that caused a lot of friction.
I'm impressed with your appreciation for, I would call it role clarity. Like, we need to have role clarity. We need to have authority. We need to have responsibility, and people need to know. That's what I'm hearing you say. Is that right? That's
yeah. Like, I don't know. In building, every year I just get more and more affirmation that I don't know what exact numbers are, but 15% of it is actually building and craft. 70% of it is relationships.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure what the remainder is, business and accounting and, pizza parties. But it really is about people and relationships and getting those right and understanding, like, Jim over here is really good at stonework and George over here is really good at stonework. Jim is a lone wolf. Like, do not put him into a big communal system, but I've got this particular project that I can put him on, and like understanding almost like a baseball manager, and their project for that first year. Now, from what I understand, it's a different story, but like that first year, there was no manager. They had wanted me to sort of partly be in that role, but they were wanting a couple other people to also run their own thing. It was just too discordant. Yeah. But overall, it was great. So many lovely people there. Met Seth. And then after that, I came up and helped him on a couple of projects up here in Vermont. And then I pulled him down to the Southeast and helped me on some of my stuff for a couple of years. And the commute was too much. So,
and Patrick, you and I met just maybe on the eve of you moving up to Vermont. Kind of, and that was because I'm not here up in the mountains. I'm not very far from where you were.
Yeah.
And so that made me a little sad. But having spent a little bit of time in New England, it just seems like an outstanding place to be doing stonework. That just the vernacular, the historical precedents there, the raw materials relative to the things that we have to work with here. Is that part of what pulled you up to join Seth up there?
That is a part. It was definitely a confluence of things. One sort of like core part is my wife is from Pennsylvania and she does not like the heat. And I know she loves me because she spent a decade enduring Columbia, South Carolina's heat. But having like 4 proper seasons is a big deal. And she loves it up here because of that. So that was definitely a thing. The other thing was that for me and how I thought about wanting to run a company is for a long time, I've wanted it not just to be me and about me. And I wanted to have a company where you have partnerships, and Seth and I, hopefully we can have others than just the two of us. Because I want to work with really fun, cool people that I consider dear friends, and we do it for the long haul. One of my favorite bands is Rush. I'm not sure if you're familiar with them and their career, but
I think I've seen Rush on their last two tours. I think
I saw them on their R40. They opened the tour in Tulsa, and Clay and I saw them. Yeah, but they played together for 40 years, and there's so many bands that would have killed to have just one album as good as Clockwork Angels,
Mm-hmm.
And just their dynamic of coming together, collaborating, but also creating enough space to have your own life and your own downtime, and that partnership. And there's other sort of examples, but they're definitely one of them of like, that's sort of the direction I want to emulate. Because if I keep doing it just on my own, I'm going to burn out.
We keep seeing this pattern where you get people that, they acquire these skills in the craft, and then they become like highly proficient at their craft. And then they go out on their own, and they're doing it with one other guy or themselves, just by themselves, maybe some subs occasionally. And then they're like, all right, I got to get bigger. And so they get hit to this point where they've got about 6, maybe 8 guys. They are by far the best craftsmen on the crew, and they never touch the work because they're just running the business. And that was a thing that I was completely unwilling to do. The business end of stuff is a stretch for me, and the joy comes in the actual doing, and having a situation like this is ideal, where we can distribute a lot of the administrative stuff. And it's not just us. We have, high capacity people on our crew as well that we can distribute stuff to. We have
top talent.
And so, I had been looking for 6 people since I was, 19. My grandfather and I are standing looking at this building that we're putting together. I'm like, Will, you and I can't run this thing by ourselves. It's too big. We need 6 people to make this thing work right. So it's one of those things where you have this thought, and you take it and you put it in the back of your head. And you're just like, every time you meet somebody, you're like, is this a match? Is this a match? Is this a match? Yeah. So I meet Patrick at the monastery, and I'm like,
and I have a crew.
this might be a match.
Yeah.
This might be a match. And so then you wait for the right opportunity. And we had the current client had reached out to Patrick with the odd question of, where do I have to move for you to build me a house? And he said, how about Vermont? Which was kind of a surprise to him, because Patrick's functioned in the Southeast.
He's halfway across the country. He would,
So he countered with, how about New Hampshire? And he said, deal. So it's a bit more of a commute than we'd like, but it's the right location for him, and it was a perfect project for being able to bring the whole crew up and get established in the Northeast. So we're doing the adaptations of more insulation than what Patrick was having to do. He was able to do just the thermal mass was sufficient in the South, and not so much here in New England. So we're doing.
You're talking about this New Hampshire project is the project that, if you go check out
sort of the latest pictures
Instagram right now, is like, that's what you're seeing come along right now.
And the website will hopefully this fall, winter will be like updated because it's been laying fallow for a few years.
Still, totally. I mean, I know there's not a lot of recent stuff on there, but it's completely beautiful.
Yeah.
The drawings that are on it are great, as well as the work. And you've got so much great stuff on Instagram. It's easy to see, see the current things. But so when you were doing structural masonry in the Southeast,
Mm-hmm.
you weren't having the installation challenges were not nearly what they are for you here or for you in the future now.
I mean, yeah, just no insulation is needed in the walls. Now, on the code, it'll say like you're insufficient there, but especially at the residential level, if you run your proposed structure through ResCheck, if you're familiar with the
I think I'm about to have to do that.
Yeah. So yeah, it seems more daunting than it is, and it's a great resource to plug in all the info. And for folks that aren't familiar with it, the oversimplified version is you just say, hey, these aspects of my build are underperforming based on the R value requirements in the code, but these other sections of my building, like the roof, are overperforming, and on the whole, we're good. So that way, like if you have, you can use that for all sorts of things. A big section of windows in a house that don't have enough insulative properties. You can, with a ResCheck, you can show, hey, we're on the whole good. So that's more or less all that I would have to do. It wasn't an arduous permitting process to work through this stuff. And even up here, it's the same sort of system, but we are adding insulation into the walls, and we're exploring different processes with that. So like on this iteration, we basically built it's going to be harder to explain verbally for folks that aren't initiated in brick masonry, but essentially if you took a quad wythe, 4 layers of brick wide wall, we call that a quad wythe. You took that thickness of wall, which is nominally 16 inches, and you removed one of the 2 middle withes on the inside of the wall, in the middle of the wall, and then centered that remaining one. So functionally, you're laying 3 withes. On either side of that middle withe, we put in hempcrete insulation. Mm-hmm. So we actually hit the R value that we need
to match code.
Right, to match code right out of the gate, and we're still able to do a header bonding every 6, and make it work that way.
Yeah.
But we're looking to explore just different iterations of that basic concept, and also looking to wire our current project for sound, so to speak. In terms of studying throughout a whole year the temperature differential between the inside and outside of the wall, humidity, stuff like that. Yeah.
It sounds like you've got it. Go ahead.
Well, like one other thing that blew me away when I first came up to visit Seth and to work with him in Vermont was just how many every town, just like in the South, has old brick buildings that are not insulated, that are just fine. Mm-hmm. And I personally, right now, I'm living in a house that is a double wide brick house, and we got through the winter just fine. The heating bill was a bit more, and we just wore some sweaters. Mm-hmm. My sort of crazy conspiracy thing is I would like to build a house with no insulation in the walls because I don't think it's as big a deal. I'm going to build little test hot houses, and we're going to check it. Because the biggest thing is you don't want air infiltration for drafts, which masonry is great for. 16 inches of brick and mortar, where's that going to go? We've developed really robust ways of detailing the windows and the doors, because that's where your drafts come in. That's what historically would fail. And just making your roof bulletproof from an insulation standpoint.
Because most of your loss is
It's just up.
Heat
It's just up.
loss.
Yeah, stop the draft on the walls.
Yeah.
Put a good hat on it.
Heat loss through the ceiling and then out your windows. I mean, that's the if you stop the draft, your numbers are pretty small.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. It sounds like you've got in this current client, you've got, it sounds like a great client, someone who's interested in doing a really special house.
I mean, truly lovely clients. Yeah.
And how, like your other work, because you have plenty of other work, how often do you get a client like this, and what's talk about the other projects y'all are doing?
Oh, like doing currently?
Yeah. Or have done. I see walls, I see bridge restoration.
Yeah.
right.
I see a lot of timber framing.
Most of our clients are more like this one than not.
Yeah.
Which I've been very grateful for. It's not like a big long string of bad apples.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And great clients in the Southeast, one of my favorites would like to, he's actually from Boston originally. I want to pull him up here. They, at least in terms of what they're looking for, it does vary though, Jeff, a lot. In the Southeast, we're sort of like 50-50, and one half was really drawn to what we were doing from a conviction standpoint. And there was like, oh, the ideas that you're pursuing resonate with me and I want to do that. And then the other half was like, that's just cool and I want cool,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't really care of the why, that might make it look cool. Which is fine.
Can you elaborate some on the conviction part? What do you mean by that?
Oh, on the conviction of like, oh, I want to build something that is an heirloom, for my kids and my grandkids, not a liability. I want to build something that will add value to my community, not just, for my own personal portfolio or, my personal desires. I want more beautiful things, in my neighborhood, would be more of that conviction. And then trending towards, some folks wanting more healthy spaces to live in, less glue-based, off-gassing plastics, more natural materials. I mean, sort of all in that spectrum.
When you walk into our construction site, it does not smell like a modern house.
Nope.
You're just not getting the VOCs. There's so far we've used a couple sheets of plywood on the entire thing. It's like we built the cricket for the chimney of some plywood. And like, well, that's outside of the environment.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
we were talking to a fire chief. There's a project we were working on in Atlanta, and the mother-in-law house that was on the same property next to where we were working burnt down. And she was saying that, I can't remember the exact numbers, 50 years ago, it would take 45 minutes for a fire to spread from one corner of the room to engulf the whole room and then, jump to another room. She's like, we have 5 to 7 minutes from when it starts to you have to be there to get it out, or the entire structure is gone.
Yeah.
And it's just so, you just go to Europe and look at the people, and you can tell that they're healthier.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how much of it is, the toxins in food, the toxins in, skincare, all those things that Europe has done arguably a better job than we have. But it's obvious that the buildings that, have been around for 600 years are just not introducing these, novel substances into our bloodstreams that our bodies have never dealt with before, because we're experimenting with chemistry and our body just doesn't know what to do with it. So
it's not what we're doing now is not Lindy.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like we aren't even trying to do a house that's non-toxic. We're just trying to do stuff that's going to last really well and be beautiful. And the result is that you have to do it out of something that's non-toxic. It's just, it's a secondary effect that you just is kind of.
Austin joined me on Yeoman for a second time with a couple other folks, and we recorded an episode on time preference and construction, and low time preference versus high time preference. And high time preference meaning you are more interested in getting something really, you want to get something really quick. You can have a high time preference culture, which is, would not care whether something is disposable, but it's how quickly they can get it and how, and then a low time preference would be wanting the things they buy to endure for a long time. And we've moved, I think, over the last, for a lot of reasons, we go into some of them in that episode. Culturally, we moved from a low time preference society to a high time preference society. And as you described, like the conviction around some of your clients, it sounds to me like they're just intuitively low time preference people.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
And I think that whole currency conversation is very interesting. The harder the currency is to make, the more value it has, the more time preference you end up with. I've always tried to kind of ignore currency as we currently understand it and think in terms of lifetime, my lifetime. That's the only thing I have to experience is my lifetime. So, if you're real lucky if you get 100 years. So when I look at something that I'm doing, if it's going to last 100 years, I'm like, okay, that's a lifespan. That's reasonable. There's exceptions. I build a greenhouse. I'm not going to build a 100-year greenhouse. It's going to be 7 or 15 years or something like that. And you move on. But just that general thing that I'm aiming for is kind of 100 years is kind of that threshold. And
I hear you. Yeah, I think about
the built environment in terms of. It sparked in my head the sort of where the stage that we're entering into now is that we've built, a couple hundred years ago, structures that need, serious maintenance and overhaul, which is totally fine and reasonable, still healthy and fine, but like, hey, you got to tend to them. It's been a couple hundred years. And at the same time, we've got buildings built in the 70s that are at the same stage of needing repair and overhaul. And we've got buildings from the 90s that need repair and serious overhaul, and they're all needing repaired now. And a lot of the modern buildings the issue is compounded in that they were never built to be repaired or overhauled. It's just tear it down. That's the best sort of economical framework. Either, it's not a lovable enough building in the community's eyes, or it's just in the assemblage of the parts and structure, it's not meant to be restored. Sorry, that vinyl window now that is rotting out has no repairable parts. Never did. And so I think it rise into the high time preference. Even it's a feedback of like, I don't have time to invest in long-lived things, so I'm frantically running around. Whereas, older cities and places like Europe they have the investments of their forefathers to lean on a bit better.
we get the people that ask, oh, isn't that expensive to build that way? Well, sure. But, again, I tend to come at things in that, that human investment instead of the, arbitrary number that our, economy is placed on stuff. One of the ways I like to think about it is, in this town of Springfield, you've got, set population. And if you look at your average lifespan and the number of people, basically you're consuming every 3 days, you consume one life. So it's like when you're looking at budgeting, this is the number of days that have been spent in the town of Springfield. Every 3 days, there's a life. There's a life.
Mm-hmm.
There's a life. Huh. And so you have to think about it as a natural resource, but it's like grant money. If you don't spend it, they don't give it to you next year. It's not like it's a, you can spend a life doing worthwhile things, or you can spend a life doing things that aren't worthwhile. And there's a lot of different ways of coming up with, criteria whether or not something's worthwhile. But there's obviously a lot of things that people don't enjoy doing. They don't create beauty and they don't last. Those are let's cut those things and then fill them in with something else that fits these other criteria that are, is it going to leave our space better than when we found it? Is it going to improve people's experience now during their usage of it?
Thinking y'all are, I don't know if we talked about this in that episode on time preference, but the way y'all are describing made me think about and Steve Mouzon uses this term, the lovable build, like the lovable building, the more lovable it is, the more it will endure. And you just referenced it, Patrick. But it just kind of occurred to me when you were like that, is it expensive to build this way? I was thinking like, well, if the building theoretically lasts forever and it remains useful throughout that life, and I know it doesn't, you'd have to maintain it and things like that, but just assuming that it did, then it would be of infinite value. Like
just here in Springfield and other towns here, right? There are the whole towns people are still living in houses built in the 1800s.
Yeah.
Wooden houses.
I spent a lot of time in Charleston. You're just sort of surrounded by that all the time.
You can get a decent sized one for just a couple $100,000, and they were built for, rich, successful people at the time. And now they're serving all manner of strata of income now. Mm-hmm. And they can do that because they last a long time. They can morph and adapt and be assets, in the community. And people are already spending the money these days. Like we are not, we're not the cheapest, shop around, but we are competitive in the custom home market up here. And I was in Atlanta. They hear people spending far more for less quality. I had thought you were talking about, lovable buildings. So the sort of peeking behind the curtain, like the origins of the name Orthodox Masonry actually come from G.K. Chesterton. So the intent is to be lowercase o. I'm not part of the...
I think I have that book right there.
Oh, good. Okay. So it's either like chapters... either chapter 4 or 5 in that book. I commend it to folks to read, if for nothing else, just to see where my weirdness comes from. But he talks about, that sort of that source of love, or like what makes buildings great, and just places and that sort of thing. And then the sort of the great line that I'll sort of half get right is, men did not love Rome because she was great. Rome was great because men loved her.
Right.
And it's that notion of loving something, full stop, just like a child. And, you go to a desolate, trashed out wasteland and you love it, it will be glorious. Mm-hmm. But it's not the other way around. And that was sort of that's what got me sort of honed in on wanting to work with Clay, because I saw that in him.
Yeah.
Clear as day. Like, that man just loves this thing, and he's going to, it's going to be great as a byproduct of his love.
Can I ask you a bit about that attraction, and as it relates to the people that come and work with y'all? You've
Sure.
spoken about on multiple times, and again, and here today, but I've heard you talk about it, or I've heard Patrick talk about it further, like all these people saying it's impossible to get talented, interested young men to come work in construction. I just don't understand that. Like, we don't have that problem.
No.
And it's clear to me that at least part of your not having a problem in that is that you have a philosophy of running your business and leading your team and teaching your people and things like that really ought to be table stakes, I think, for anyone that wants to have a business and grow a real business. And then at the same time, you're also building things that, in the same way as Clay's work was attractive to you, and the Carmelite monastery was attractive to both of y'all to go work on. The types of work you're doing and the manner in which you're doing it has got to be really, really attractive to young people.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it is. I mean, because I was young once. Still am by some metrics. And I was attracted to him. For me personally, like, what sort of like a self reflection bit is like, what drew me to Clay was the melding of or the marriage of work, like using your hands and your heart and your head, like it's you're all in. And prior to working with him, like in high school, I was, I hadn't like signed on the dotted line thing, but I was sort of on track to go to West Point, because at the time, like that's what drew me to West Point. I want to be fully engaged in, what was it? I was talking with Herb Kirsch, to have a representative in my corner. And like, I was going that way, wound up going a different direction. But then, like looking at the end of college, thinking, okay, what do I want to do with college? I was fortunate enough to have enough scholarships where I wasn't, indebted, to go to college. So I was afforded the opportunity to study what I wanted to study that sort of engaged me there. But coming out of that, I wanted to be fully engaged again. And so I thought, well, let's go to the Army. like that, looking around, like that's the only option, to my, my young eyes. And then a really good friend of mine who sort of knows me and what I like well sent me some of Clay's blog posts, and it was just off to the rails. Like, oh no, there is another thing. There's another thing, and I want to get married, and this is way better than the Army. So that was like my big draw, and I think at some level, other young guys are likewise drawn to that. And yeah, we put in the effort to, like, as a business, to think of others and like, how do we teach? How do we present this?
And working for us isn't easy. We work long hours.
It is hard. Yeah,
we do a lot of different stuff. So the people that are joining us are people that want to do hard things.
Yeah,
and some don't. Like, frankly, some don't make it. It's like, hey, come out for a trial. Like, man, this, sorry, this is not for you.
Yeah.
It's just fine. But I guess that's sort of the other attractive part is that, yeah, you gotta be all in. You gotta want it. And I mean, more or less, as long as
construction in general is hard.
Construction in general is hard, and
it's especially hard if you're building things that you aren't particularly excited about. How hard would that?
That's the sustain. Like, I wouldn't do this if we work too hard to do bad stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I suppose that's what leads to the reputation of alcoholism in the trades is people that are trapped in building joyless, soulless buildings that are hard to build.
I could see that. And that, hurts your body.
And then working for people who aren't mentoring you and don't actually care about you and all those.
And to touch on like sort of a third rail, and they don't get respect because the design and the agency and has been divorced from the builder. So it would be akin to working in a kitchen and all you do is chop tomatoes and there's no ever connection or chance of being able to have input on a dish.
The industry has been incredibly atomized, and over the last 150 years or so, maybe 125 years, that atomization has happened.
I guess I would say it's really ramped up in the last 50. I mean, now, to the point,
the technology of the technology.
You got drywall crews now that one crew's like, oh, I don't finish drywall, I just install.
Yeah.
Or vice versa. Like, what do you mean? I don't do it.
Y'all are design build, right? You're generally the designer of your work, and you're the builder.
If we build it, we have designed it. Unless you're a really good friend of ours,
right? And what are you doing with regard to electrical, HVAC, plumbing, those things?
In terms of
are you all performing that yourselves, or is that?
No. And we work with other subs. Like on this current project, Seth has a good friend that does great slate roofing, and because we're having to have such a commute.
We could do it. We'd like to.
Yeah, right.
But we do everything.
Yeah.
So you have to choose. So we've got electrical, plumbing subs. We had.
Are you doing the I'd say the design? And I don't mean architectural design. I mean sort of the
mechanical
colors.
So we are doing that. As well, and this has been unique. This project has been the most unique in that regard because it really has been from day one. The client has said, you are the chefs, make the food. And they do come in at key moments to weigh in on stuff, and they provide really good insight. But I cannot stress to you how hands off they've been. He's been to the site twice.
Yeah. He brought the property sight unseen. Like, hey, I bought property for you to build for me.
Yeah.
We do have a design questionnaire that we start off with, so we get a really wide range of information about how the property is going to be used, what it's going to be used for, who's going to live there, and trying to pull out some of those things of who these people are and what's important to them, and we're able to use that to be able to do our palette of design, and then they're able to interact with that preliminary ideas that we've come up with as a team, and then be able to go from there into a final idea. So there's the clients had a fair amount of input in that initial, and then once we got the direction, he's like, go.
Yeah. Oh, that's so great. Well, gentlemen, I've loved speaking with both of you. Thank you for this conversation. I hope we can do it again. Can I ask you, I guess it's pretty straightforward, but can I ask you to share with folks where they can find everything they need to know about Orthodox Masonry?
So the website is at orthodoxmasonry.com. Hopefully fall or winter we'll have a something that will be much more presentable and current.
It's pretty good right now. Yeah, maybe not current. Yeah.
Well, Jeff, your socks are going to get knocked off. Yeah, we're sitting on some ideas. But like the idea, like you let me know once we launch it if it succeeds or fails. But the idea is going to be that I want a website for us that when you hit that page, it shows that the website itself is crafted in the way that we craft our buildings. Because right now I'm using Squarespace to host everything, and it's fine. It's good product. I'm not knocking what they are, but it is sort of formative in how that piece goes. But anyway, orthodoxmasonry.com. We have an Instagram, Orthodox Mason, or Orthodox Masonry.
Right. Yeah.
And then I'm on Twitter because I love interacting with guys like you, and try to be accessible at least in that medium, and that's kind of it. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Seth, Patrick,
you can find him there.
you have to come. You have to track down Seth, and
yeah. Good luck.
You have to find him.
Hire us to build something. You can talk to me a lot.
Well, guys, thanks again. Thanks for joining me on Yeoman. I really love the work you're doing. Look forward someday to come and seeing it firsthand.
Yes, sir. You're always welcome. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.